I do not consider myself to be much of a writer, but I have seen Saga writing the annals, and it seems to bring her clarity and strength. Something I could use in times like these. Ben, Orchid, and I have been tasked with escorting a scholar from the scriptorium to an Aelfhime ruin in the Vale. After our clash with those stone throwers, it seems strange to be leaving the other Crest behind in Valewater. By all accounts, Irongull doesn't like it either. But Ben made an agreement with this scholar, and the last thing the Crest needs at this moment is a fussy scholar complaining about the Crest not keeping its contracts. I see the weight this has put on Ben's shoulders. He is serious and distant for such a young man. I know not what horrors he experienced in his war with Davenar, but clearly he carries them still. I only hope he does not carry them to his grave. As for myself, I am eager to see these ruins. In Anshua we heard only rumors and legends about Aelfhime, but the wonders in those legends were enough to excite my youthful imagination. The scholar, Silas, is eager to explore them, and I can already see that I will be his advocate to my fellows. We are ready to depart. I only hope Orchid and Ben can find some source of enjoyment in this journey. Otherwise, it will be a long march. Welcome back for another episode of Errant Adventures. As always, I'm your game master and solo player, Steve Morrison. On this week's episode, Ben and company set off on a journey to escort the scholar Silas Wilberforce to a newly discovered Aelfhime ruin. Find out what happens on episode 27, Beauty and Corruption. The sun dawns on Valewater, a small village a little south of the city of Heartvale. It has been an interesting few days in Valewater as the Crest, a mercenary company operating out of Heartvale, has come to Valewater and set up a base of operations there. The lieutenant of the Crest, Lephalia, and Master Sergeant Irongull have been conducting business in the Griffin and Moon, an inn close to the docks of Valewater. Ben Winestone, Arid, and Orchid, three members of the Crest who have been tasked to escort a scholar from the scriptorium named Silas Wilberforce, have packed their bags and are ready to undertake this expedition to the Aelfhime ruins that are a few days' journey away. Ben is a young man in his early 20s, with olive skin and dark hair. He is a son of Heartvale and a recent member of the Crest. Arid is a little older than Ben, his skin a little darker, and he keeps his head shaved cleanly. He is a mage of the Crest, an understudy of Lephalia, and one who is not to be trifled with in the ways of magic. He hails from Anshua, far to the west. Finally, with them comes Orchid, a tall Pheromorchian with pale skin and red hair. They tower over the other two, muscle-bound and carrying a formidable axe. Together, the three of them form an escort for the scholar Silas Wilberforce. We join them as they stand outside the Griffin and Moon, waiting for Silas Wilberforce to emerge so they can begin their journey to the Aelfhime ruin. As they're standing there, Ben is picking at his nails with a dagger. Orchid is leaning against a wall of the inn and is studying the passers-by in this small village. And Arid stands out front, waiting. He turns and looks at Ben and says, "Ben, my friend, tell me, did you know about this ruin out here?" Ben shakes his head and says, "I did not, Arid, no. I believe it must have been recently discovered. As far as I'm aware, all of the Aelfhime ruins that are here in the Vale have already been investigated. That is why this is such a curious endeavor." Arid nods and says, "Perhaps Master Wilberforce will know more about this when he comes out." At that moment, the door opens and Silas Wilberforce emerges. He is a large man, bulky and full of life. He steps out and he is carrying a small backpack which he slings over his shoulder. His clothes are covered in these various sigils that represent subjects studied at the scriptorium. And as he emerges, he looks around and says, "Oh good, you're all here. Are we ready to get underway?" And the three Crest soldiers look at each other, and then Arid says, "Yes, we are ready to go. Come, follow me." And they are going to begin walking. As they leave Valewater behind and begin to make their way towards this ruin, Arid is going to direct this question at Silas and says, "Master Wilberforce, tell me, why is this ruin just now being investigated? My friend Ben here tells me that all of the ruins here in the area have already been explored." Silas says, "Well, yes, it's quite curious, actually. We didn't know that this one existed until about a few weeks ago. One of the rangers that operates out of Valewater seems to have stumbled upon it, and they sent a message to the scriptorium, and of course that ended up in my hands, and now I'm here, and we're going on this little journey." Arid says, "So it is possible that this ruin is entirely untouched?" Yes, it does seem to be quite possible. That's why it's so exciting." "It is indeed exciting. Let us go quickly, then. We wouldn't want anyone else to get to this ruin before we do." "No, I don't think that's quite a danger, but yes, I do agree that we should go quickly. I am eager to begin my investigation." And we are going to jump right into it with a journey. So I am using a different system other than the sword, the crown, and the unspeakable power for this leg of the adventure. And that system is Ironsworn, which is one of my absolute favorite game systems. And specifically, we're going to be using the delve mechanic. But before we get to that, I have created a vow for the members of the Crest, which is escort Silas Wilberforce to the Aelfhime ruin and explore it. And this vow represents the agreement that the Crest have made with Silas to give him an escort to this ruin. And so I am going to make this a dangerous vow. And that just means that the vow is going to progress at a certain rate depending on how we roll and what progress we make as we go. And I'll explain that as we get into it. But the actual first thing that we need to do for this is going to be making a journey, because we need to get to this ruin before we can start delving the depths. And in order to do that, we are going to make the undertake a journey move. So when you travel across hazardous or unfamiliar lands, set the rank of your journey. I'm going to set this as travel to the ruin, and I'm going to leave it as troublesome. I don't think it's a very difficult journey. It's not all that far away, but it is enough in the wilderness that something could come up, and there could be some danger on the way that we encounter. In order to undertake this journey, we are going to make a series of rolls. And in Ironsworn, the way that the dice mechanic works is you have a d6, which is your action die, plus a stat. And the stats are edge, heart, iron, shadow, and wits. They range in value from 1 to 3. And you roll your d6 and you add one of those stats. In this case, it's going to be the wits stat. And then you also at the same time roll 2 d10s, and those represent the challenge dice. That is how we determine the difficulty of an action. So if your action die plus your stat exceeds both of the challenge dice, that is a strong hit. Much like in Scup, that is going to be a complete success without any sort of complication. If your action die exceeds only one of the challenge dice, that is a weak hit, and that is a success with some sort of complication. Finally, if your action die is equal to or below both challenge dice, that is a miss, and that represents failure. So to undertake this journey, I am going to roll plus wits, and for this I'm using Arid as the leader of this part of the expedition. So Arid, Ben, and Orchid, I have created Ironsworn sheets for all 3 of them. So we will be using them throughout this adventure, which is a little unusual because I've only ever played Ironsworn with a single character. So it'll be interesting to play with 3 characters. So we are going to go ahead and start with our first roll. This is going to be a d6 plus wits, which for Arid is plus 3. And we are going to compare that to our challenge dice. So we're starting off with a 7 on the action die. That's a 4 on the die plus 3. And then I've got a 2 and a 6 on the challenge dice. So we're starting off with a strong hit. So on a strong hit, you reach a waypoint. If the waypoint is unknown to you, envision it. Ask the oracle. If unsure, then choose one. Make good use of your resources, mark progress. Or you move at speed. Mark progress and take +1 momentum, but suffer -1 supply. So momentum is a resource in Ironsworn that you build up through gaining successes, and eventually you can burn that momentum to overcome your challenge dice when your action die fails to exceed your challenge dice. Supply is another resource that you have. Right now we have a supply of 5 as we're starting out this journey, and that basically represents how well provisioned you are for your adventures. So I'm actually going to choose that option to move at speed. I'm going to mark progress, which in this case is going to be 3 full boxes of progress because it is a troublesome journey. It's not all that challenging, and the progress track goes up to 10. So I'm filling out 3 full boxes out of 10 on this journey. I'm also going to raise Arid's momentum from 2, which is where all the characters start, to 3. And I'm going to subtract 1 from my 5 supply and reduce that to 4. So that gives us a little bit of momentum, a little bit of progress, and now we are going to envision our waypoint. So let's see what kind of waypoint we have. I'm going to roll on our descriptor table in the Oracle. This is 76. Lush. Okay, so they are moving through this forested area as they are leaving Vale Water behind. And it is late summer, early fall, but there is still so much greenery around. And it is a very pleasant morning as they walk along. Let's go ahead and roll another Undertake a Journey to take on the next leg of this journey. Again, +3 on this. I've got a 7 on the action die, a 5 and an 8 on my 2 challenge dice. So this time it is going to be a weak hit. So on a weak hit, you reach a waypoint and mark progress, but suffer -1 supply. So again, because this is a troublesome journey, we are going to get up to 6 boxes of progress, but we're going to tick our supply from 4 down to 3. So let's go ahead and take another stab at the descriptors to see what this waypoint is. 72. Beautiful. So I think at this point, they've moved out of the forested area, and now they're in this open plain, and I think Arid has never been this far outside of Heartvale. I think that Ben probably has been, but I doubt that either Arid or Orchid have been this far outside of Heartvale. And at this point, they can see in the distance this large mountain range that arcs around the valley that Heartvale is located in. And there are snow-capped peaks in the distance, and they stand up against this perfectly blue sky as they're walking through this grassy plain, and there are some hills up ahead that are a little closer than the mountains. And Arid turns to Ben and says, "I can see why your people have done so well in these places. It is quite lovely here." Ben nods, sort of looking around, and says, "I haven't been out this way in years. I'd almost forgotten how breathtaking the Vale is. Maybe this wasn't so bad an idea after all." And they are going to continue walking. They're going to make it through the afternoon into early evening, and then they are going to go ahead and make camp. Now, making camp is actually a move that we can do, so why don't we go ahead and do that? You rest and recover for several hours in the wild. Roll plus supply. So I've got a supply of 3 now, so I'm rolling my same dice plus 3. It's a 9 on the action die, a 2 and a 3 on the challenge dice for a strong hit. So on a strong hit, you and your allies may each choose 2. Can recuperate, which is gaining health. Partake, which is suffering supply but taking health. Relax, take spirit. Focus, take +1 momentum. Or prepare. So I'm going to take +1 momentum for everybody. I think that is fair. As part of that, you and your allies can do this. And then I'm going to take +1 to the next Undertake a Journey. So they spend the night out in this grassy plain, and it's beautiful. The stars are out in force. There are maybe some shooting stars in the sky that they watch as it is absolutely calm and peaceful and beautiful out here in the Vale. The next morning they break camp, and then they are going to continue their journey This is probably the last leg of the journey, unless we are waylaid by a perilous event, as we head towards those hills where Silas has told them this ruin is. So +3 for wits, +1 for that last move is a +4. However, I get a 5 on the action die because I rolled a 1, and I've got a 5 and a 7 on the challenge dice, which is a miss. So yes, we are waylaid by a perilous event. I'm going over to another table, which is pay the price. And this is going to tell us how we are waylaid by a perilous event. 54. It causes a delay or puts you at a disadvantage. Okay, so what could possibly cause a delay here? Let's go to our oracles and let's just go ahead and roll on action and theme. This is very similar to action subject from Mythic, just a noun and a verb. So we've got 69, advance, and the theme, 51, advance stranger. Okay, so they're waylaid by the advance of a stranger, perhaps. Okay, so let's go ahead and roll up what this character is. So I'm going to roll on the character roll. I get a 19, an outcast, interesting. And what is this outcast's goal? 45, travel to a place, interesting. Let's get a descriptor and a disposition on them as well. 93, hot-tempered. Oh, this is starting to shape up. And their disposition, 50, wanting. So they're hot-tempered, they want something. They're trying to travel to a place, and they're an outcast. So Silas seemed to think that no one knew about this ruin other than the ranger and a few people at the scriptorium, but maybe that's not entirely true. Is this individual traveling to the Aelfhime ruin as well? And I think we're going to ask the Oracle, and this is very similar to Mythic and rolling on the fate chart, except there is no chaos factor with this. So I'm just going to be rolling pretty much a straight percentage chance of success. So I still think it's unlikely that this individual knows about the ruin and is heading to the ruin. So 76 or greater means that yes, this person does know about the ruin and that's where they're headed. 02, which is a no. Definitely not. So he is not headed to the ruin, which means if they're crossing paths, then maybe he is heading to Veilwater. And maybe if he's an outcast, maybe he's been out in the wilderness for a while. Maybe he wants some food, some ration, something from them. So I'm going to roll up a quick name for this person. Ironsworn has oracle tables for all this stuff. So I'm not going to be using maze rats or any of my other tables. I'm just going to be using the Ironsworn tables for this. So I rolled up a 92, which is Naya. Naya the Outcast. So I think they are walking along the next morning and they're getting close to these hills when this figure emerges out from behind one of the hills and is like descending down towards them. And as they're walking, the figure like turns and makes their way towards the group and starts waving. I think that Ben and Orchid are on alert as they see this figure approaching. And Naya walks up to them and says, "Hello, well met, travelers. Are you on your way somewhere specific?" And Arid looks at his fellow Crest and kind of looks at Silas too to make sure that the scholar doesn't answer. But Silas, I think, is a fairly clever and knowledgeable person on his own. So he is somewhat wary, it seems, of this stranger in the open. And Arid says, "Well met, traveler. I do not see how that is any of your business." And I think Naya goes, "Apologies, not trying to cause any harm. I'm just wondering if you have some food. I got a little lost in the woods, and I ran out of rations a couple days ago, and I haven't eaten anything in a couple days, and I tried to trap a couple of hares, but, well, I haven't had any success, and I know it's another day to Veilwater. I'm so hungry. Can you help me, please?" And does this person have any ulterior motives? I'm going to say it's 50-50. We're going to ask the Oracle. So 51 or greater will be yes. 25, no. So this person is just hungry. And are the members of the Crest likely to sacrifice some of their own food for this person who is starving? I think it's probably unlikely that they would be willing to. Yeah, I'm going to say it's unlikely. 76 or greater. 56 is a no. So I think Arid says, "That is unfortunate. I sympathize with your plight, but unfortunately, we do not have any rations to spare. Continue on towards Veilwater. I'm sure they will have food for you there." Is this person so desperate that they would consider attacking these three clearly heavily armed individuals and this scholar? I think it's unlikely. I think they're maybe desperate enough that they might. So I'm not going to say it's a small chance, but I think it's unlikely. So again, 76 or greater, will they attack? 87 is a yes. Oh, Naya, the outcast. You're making poor life decisions here. Okay, so I think that they are going to look at Arid, and I think it's not that they're going to attack. I think they're going to try and capture Arid and take advantage of him to, make him a hostage to trade for food. So suddenly out of nowhere, this dagger comes out, and Naya leaps forward and tries to grab a hold of Arid. Now the question is, can Arid slip out of the way before Naya can do so? And I think this is going to be a face danger move with edge, which is speed, agility, or precision. Now his edge is 2, so not a bad chance here. So rolling +2. That is a 5 on the action die, a 7 and an 8 on the challenge dice for a miss. So on a miss, you fail or your progress is undermined by a dramatic and costly turn of events. Pay the price. I don't even need to roll on pay the price here. Arid is so surprised at the alacrity with which Naya leaps forward and puts a blade to his throat that he doesn't even have time to react. He doesn't have time to dodge out of the way. And I think he looks at the other two, and Ben has raised his crossbow and is taking aim. Orchid has pulled their axe from its sheath, and oh boy. I think we should ask the Oracle again if it's likely that they're going to give Naya food now. And I think it's likely. I don't think they want to risk Arid getting injured over a little bit of food. So I'm going to say it's likely, which is 26 or greater. 69 is a yes. So they are going to agree to this. I think Ben has his crossbow raised and he says, "All right, friend. We understand that you're desperate. No need to harm him. We'll give you some food. Orchid, go ahead and take some rations out and hand them over to this person." And so we're going to represent that with a loss of supply. So I think that is going to take their supply down to 2. And they take some rations out into another small bag and toss it over to Naya. Naya then releases Arid and, well, now this is an interesting thing because Ben definitely has a crossbow on them. So I think Naya's going to say, look, how do I know you're not just going to shoot me with that thing once I let your friend go? Ben says, you don't know that. And Naya says, right, well then I'm just going to have your friend accompany me until we get out of here, and starts backing away with Arid. I think Arid is going to say, no, let's not be hasty here. I give you my word that we will not harm you. You may go with these supplies and we will not take any retribution against you. And he is going to attempt to compel Naya. This is going to be with heart, which Arid has a heart of 2. Five on the action die, a 6, and an 8 on the challenge dice is another miss. So they refuse or make a demand which costs you greatly. I think they're just going to refuse. And they start backing away. Has Ben had enough of this? I think it's likely that he has. But maybe we should ask the Oracle. Does Ben shoot this poor sap? I think it's likely. 26 or greater. 03 is a no. So he does not shoot him. So at this point, Naya is backing away with Arid, and I think Arid says, don't worry, my friends. I will catch up with you once he feels safe. Stay here. And Ben and Orchid allow Arid to be led away by this individual. As they're leaving, Orchid says, right now, if you do end up hurting our friend, I'm going to find you. And I'm going to cut your fingers off one at a time. And then I'm going to feed them to you. Just remember that. Naya, I think, blanches a little bit at that threat. And Arid says, don't worry. As long as you do me no harm, that will not come true. And I think once Naya feels like they are far enough away that Ben's crossbow isn't going to do anything, they're going to release Arid. I don't think they have any interest in harming Arid, even though Naya is hot-tempered. I think the urge to escape with food is much stronger than a desire to harm this Crest soldier. So he releases Arid and then turns and starts running. Arid watches him go and sort of sighs a little bit and then starts to make his way back to join the others. And that was quite a waylay on that journey. So let's go ahead and continue our journey as we roll another wits roll here. 5 on the action die, a 3 and an 8 on the challenge dice for a weak hit. So again, we reach our waypoint, which is going to be 3 more boxes of progress, which is going to take us to 9 out of 10, but we lose another supply. So this takes us down to 1 supply. I think that loss of supply represents just the amount of time that things have taken to get to these foothills. And, you know, they haven't eaten all of their food, but they did have to give some of it away. And they are a little bit set back as they reach their destination. So in order to reach our destination, I'm going to roll my 2d10 challenge dice, and I'm going to compare that to my 9 progress. So effectively, my progress becomes my action die. So rolling 2d10 versus 9. Got a 9 and a 5, which is a weak hit. So on a weak hit, you arrive but face an unforeseen hazard or complication. Envision what you find. Ask the Oracle if you're unsure. So we arrive in these hills where this ruin is located, but there's some sort of hazard or complication here. I think this is probably a good place for another action and theme roll. So that's 30 focus, and the theme is 83. Focus, religion. Okay, so there is some sort of religious complication here. Focus, religion. So we know that the religions of Heartvale are the dragon goddess Argante, the wolf god Lupercas, and the Sleeper King, who is the god of death. So it could be one of them, but this is an Aelfhime ruin, and we don't necessarily know much about Aelfhime and what their religion was like. And this is a unforeseen hazard or complication. It doesn't necessarily have to come up yet. So I'm going to ask the Oracle, because I've got an idea of what this might be. And I'm going to set it at likely, which is 26 or greater, and we'll see what this says. 38 is a yes. So I've got an idea of what this unforeseen religious complication is. So I'm just going to tuck that away in the back of my mind, and we'll see where it comes up as they get into this ruin. So they successfully make it to the ruin, and now we are going to begin our delve. In order to do that, we need to know about this site. So what is this site like? What's a description here? So I'm going to roll on the site description table. It's a 53. Blighted. Ooh, perfect. Okay, so we're in the hills, and as they make their way up, I think Silas is leading the way at this point, and it's like, as my ranger friend told me that it was somewhere in these hills. He said he said you couldn't miss it, that the earth is a little bit more dark and it looks a little bit as though it's been burned, even though there's no sign of any fires or anything in these areas. And they're walking along when they see this hillside that appears a little cracked and burnt, as if some fire raged through here. The grass at some point just stops being green and becomes blackened and like it's decaying. And they are looking at this hole in the hill, and Ben says, I don't know about anyone else, but I don't get a particularly warm and fuzzy feeling looking at that. Arid, I think, focusing his energies, is going to try and detect if there's some sort of magic here. And to do that, I'm going to gather some information. This is another wits roll, but I have the asset for Arid of Sighted. So when you face danger or gather information to identify or detect mystical forces, add +1 and take +1 momentum on a hit. So I have that. I'm going to gather information, but I'm adding +1, so this is actually +4 to my roll. An 8 on the action die, and 2 7s on the challenge dice for a strong hit with our first opportunity. So when you have a strong hit and the challenge dice match, then you get an opportunity. If you get a miss and your challenge dice match, then it's a complication. So I get some sort of opportunity here. I get to add a bonus momentum for my asset. And then as part of the gather information move, when I get a strong hit, I discover something helpful and specific. The path you must follow or action you must take to make progress is made clear. Envision what you learn and take +2 momentum. So that's going to take me up to 7 momentum for Arid. And we're going to learn something useful, and there's an opportunity here. So let's once again go to our oracles here, and this time I'm going to roll on aspect and focus as the something useful. So the aspect is 87, natural, and the focus is 50. Natural lair. Okay, so I think what he discovers is that, yes, first of all, there are definitely mystical forces at work here. And this is a natural lair. So maybe this isn't even the ruin, but the ruin is inside. So what if this part of the hill, it looks as though it's been clawed at and dug out. And that's why this ruin wasn't discovered until recently, because for a long time it was just buried inside this hill. And then some creature came along and carved out a lair in the hill and opened up a way into this ruin. And I think the opportunity here is that that creature is not here. So they do not have to contend with some sort of beast in the area that made this lair. I think it's even more so than, oh, it's just not here right now. I think the signs of it being here are old, like at least a few months. And so it is very likely that this creature has moved on from this lair. So they don't have to worry about, like coming back out and getting ambushed by some sort of creature. And I think probably the reason why that creature ended up moving on is because of the ruin opening up, and it released some sort of mystical energy that started to decay the ground around the entryway. So that is what they see as they are approaching this site. Now, I went ahead and did a little bit of pre-work, and each delve has a theme and a domain, and these are basically the features of this location that your characters are delving. Now, I went ahead and picked Ancient for the theme and Ruin for the domain because it's a ruin, but I'm actually going to change that because I think, based on the things that we've rolled up here, this is actually a corrupted ruin. This place is tainted by dark magic. So I'm going to change up the theme to corrupted. We're going to keep our domain as ruin, and that could be a little creepy as we go in. So we have our site, and I'm going to wait to name it until we go in a little bit more, because I want to let some of those things come about naturally in order to decide what the name of this Aelfhime ruin is. But because we are beginning a delve in this site, we've got a little bit more pre-work to do. So we're going to discover a site. When you resolve to enter a perilous site in pursuit of an objective, choose the theme and domain which best represents its nature, which we did, and give it a rank. And I'm going to give it a formidable rank. So again, all progress tracks in Ironsworn are 10 boxes, and formidable difficulty means that a progress is going to allow me to fill one whole box of progress as I go. So this is a formidable area, and then there are denizens inside of this place. Now let's go to our oracles, and I want to fill out some of the denizens, but I don't actually know what any of the creatures that might be in here are. So I'm going to roll on a monstrosity table, and we're going to generate some right now. So this is going to be 81 on the table for size, which is large, which means it's giant sized. It's a little scary. And its primary form is a 91. Hybrid, roll twice. 93, so I'm going to re-roll that because I'm not going to roll 4 times. 66 is amorphous, and 11, beast or mammal. An amorphous beast or mammal. And what are its characteristics? 84, bony protuberances, and an ability. 65. Noxious smell. Ugh. Okay, so this is some sort of amorphous beast that emits a noxious smell and has bony protuberances and is large. So I'm going to set this as rare. This is a rare denizen in here. And what should we call this thing? I mean, a bear is always fun. Let's call it a bone bear. Can't think of anything better at the moment, so we're going to call it a bone bear. Okay, let's go ahead and for very common, we can just say cave spiders. I feel like that's a common trope. In my world, I don't know that there are necessarily like goblins and kobolds and like typical sort of D&D fantasy creatures, but there are probably some sort of imps or like sprites or something like that are troublemakers. So I'm going to put imps down as common, and let's roll up one more. So 76, this is also going to be large. No small monsters in here. And its primary form is 8, also a beast or mammal. Characteristics, 88, semi-transparent, and its abilities, 64, is a burrower. Okay, so this is a beast. It's semi-transparent. It's large. Let's put this as uncommon. We're going to call it a dire mole. I don't know why a dire mole would be transparent, but it's probably corrupted by the dark magics of this site. And then let's do one more for fun, because let's see if we can get something smaller. 46. Medium. Okay, so this is person-sized. And this is going to be 80. Elemental. Okay, that's exciting. And it has 64 tentacles or tendrils. And its abilities, 36. Strong. Tendrils, it's elemental tendrils. So maybe like I'm thinking of like a shock eel or something like that, but I don't know that there's necessarily water in here. So maybe it's some sort of like plant that has some like electricity or like shocking nature to it. I'm going to continue with my brilliant naming scheme and just call these lightning vines. We are good for the moment. I think we have filled out some of the denizens in here. We can generate more as we go through. So it is time to delve the depths and make our way inside. Arid, Ben, Orchid, and Silas approach the opening of this lair. And as they approach, all 4 of them can feel the change in air pressure as they cross the threshold. There is indeed a ruin in here. It is dark, and all of them light torches and carry them inward. There is a ruin here that has been untouched for at least 500 years. They don't know yet what they're going to discover inside, but as they cross the threshold, Arid says, I sense a great potential for evil in this place. There is dark magic permeating the stones of this ruin. Be mindful as we go forward. Watch your steps. And be mindful of one another. Let us go. And they are going to enter the ruin. We're going to start off with our first move as we delve the depths. When you traverse an area within a perilous site, envision your surroundings. Ask the oracle if unsure. Then consider your approach. If you navigate this area with haste, roll plus edge. With stealth or trickery, roll plus shadow. With observation, intuition, or expertise, roll plus wits. Obviously, I'm going to roll plus wits because Arid has a wits of 3, and we are moving into this space with observation. 5 on the action die, a 3 and a 7 on the challenge dice, which is a weak hit. So on a weak hit, roll on the following table according to your stat. So I'm going to roll on the wits table. 13. Mark progress and reveal a danger. So this is a formidable site, so I'm going to mark 1 box of progress, and we are going to reveal a danger. But before that, I'm going to roll my d10 to determine what the features are of this entryway. 9 is mystic runes or markings. So I think that this entryway is actually in some sort of hallway. So whatever creature it was that dug its way into the side of this hill, it didn't find the entrance of the ruin. It made an entrance into a wall. And so as the company steps through and looks around, they are in this small stone corridor. And there are mystic runes lining the ceiling and the walls and the floor. And they are, I think, faintly like pulsing and glowing. They start making their way down this corridor. They pick a direction and start walking. And as they go, these runes are persistent. They continue to flash and to shine in the darkness. And as they come towards an opening, let's roll for a danger. 67. So that is going to be on our reveal a danger table. You face an environmental or architectural hazard. So as they are walking down this corridor and they come to this opening, we don't yet know about these creatures that are inside of this ruin. Did these creatures stumble into the ruin over the last few months since the opening was created? This bone bear, was that just a regular bear that has been corrupted by the dark magics of this place? We don't know yet. But one thing we do know is that other than maybe a few instances, nothing has disturbed this ruin for hundreds of years. It is sat here, waiting to be rediscovered. But surely time has taken its toll on the construction of this site. And as Arid and the others are making their way down this hallway into this opening, cracks begin to appear. Cracks appear on the walls around them. And I think in the gloom and in the dark, even by torchlight, all they hear is the sound of stone cracking and shifting. Thanks for listening to Errant Adventures, and thanks so much to Syrinscape for the lovely ambient sounds and music throughout the episode. If you enjoyed the show, please tell anyone and everyone in your life about it. And if you haven't already, please rate and review the show on your favorite podcast app. It really does help others find me. If you want to interact with me, my handle on Instagram and Twitter is @ErrantSoloPod, or you can email me at errantsolopod@gmail.com. I also post short fiction and campaign-related materials on my website, errantadventurespod.com. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you next time.